So, a warm welcome to everybody here at the Unexpected Encounter number 3. Who has been to a earlier unexpected encounter? One, two, three, oh, that's more. Is it really the third? Oh, some of them went to them all, that's great. It's my second. The first one was in Amsterdam, second one was here at Foundation We Are, which is a beautiful space, which they call the village, because it's not only their headquarters, their office, but it's also a place where you can come, sit, work, meet other people, and host events like this. And then at certain times it's also an exhibition space. So if you ever feel like doing something in Eindhoven, come here and ask them if you can collaborate with them. Thank you very much for coming to this interactive session. For the ones sitting in the back, maybe you can also come to the front, because I'm going to run up and down to you anyway. So yeah, it's an interactive session, which means, yes, of course, there were 3 speakers invited with a brilliant expertise, and of course we will ask them a lot of questions. We will go into depth into a conversation with them about how do we actually imagine climate change, how do we visualize this. But it's also about you. It's also about us from different domains to actually get a grip on how can we work on climate change, and also how can we work together on climate change, right? Whose work is involved in climate change? Can I see your hands? Aren't we all? I see somebody here. Well, to be honest, let's see if we are indeed all from different domains. Let's get up. And I'm going to ask you, what is your profession, your field of expertise? I'm going to ask you, what is your role in climate change, and or how it is connected indeed to climate change. If you feel like, that's me actually, that person is talking exactly about what I do, then you can sit down. But if it's not, you keep standing, okay? So I'm going to run to somebody I don't know, or not really know. Hi, what's your name?
Hi, I'm Alex.
What do you do? What's your profession?
Ooh, that's a difficult question. Well, I'm actually working at Foundation We Are. I'm kind of coordinating part of the program. That's the internal program with the collaborations for future project. And yeah, I think I'd probably call myself a design researcher.
Design researcher. And what's your role in climate change? In what way is it connected to climate change?
Oh, well, I'm probably contributing to it, and yeah, hopefully making working towards diminishing my own impact, but also others. That would be a goal.
Thank you very much. Everybody's still standing, so no other design researchers here? Let me also give the example. My name is Marsha Simon. I'm an independent moderator, presenter, and program maker in the creative industries. And I think my role in design is to burst our design bubble, because I believe indeed we just need to collaborate with many, many, many others to actually make a difference, to actually make impact. So that's my role. I still see everybody standing. Oh, there's somebody sitting down. Somebody sitting. You feel that you feel connected to my role?
Yeah, not the moderator part, but I think yeah, it's about bursting bubbles and to connect and then work together towards it. That was very yeah, I thought.
And what is our challenge? What is our challenge?
The challenge is to kind of make up for the time that we're losing because it's going too slow. I think the solutions are there, but we need to be quicker. So all the hands on deck. I'd say everyone on board.
Thank you very much. Let me continue my conversation here. Who are you? What's your profession?
My name is Lieke. My profession is to be a documentary filmmaker. I don't make any films about climate change, but I'm just curious. Like, I want to learn more about it. So that's why I came here.
I think that's exactly why we are why we are hosting these series, these unexpected encounters. What kind of movies do you make?
I think I focus mainly on how people are, how people live their lives, different way of lives, how people invullen van hun leven. Hoe zeg je dat? Giving form to their lives. I'm very interested in that.
Okay, I think in a way I already hear Gideon saying, yeah, that's also connected to what I make as a documentary maker. Oh. Thank you. Thank you for coming here. Are you from Eindhoven? Have you ever been here?
I start to live here now for 3 months because my boyfriend lives here.
Oh, and why is he not here?
He was scared for you.
He's afraid of me. He's already met me before.
Yeah, the interactive questions. He said, I'm tired. I'm not sure if I'm going to make it.
Okay, so next time you have to bring him because we have to burst the bubbles, okay? Promised. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. Let me go here. Haven't been here. So, who are you?
I'm Mariska. I'm a designer. I also teach at Design Academy, so I think that's maybe a bit climate change related because we have a studio called Silva Systems where we take the forest as a starting point for the students to work on. And I also worked for precious plastic for a really long time, so recycling plastic, and I have a stichting now with that, but we need money. Waste Welcome. But yeah, we are writing a lot of subsidies and we didn't get anything so far, so that's what blocks, that's our challenge to start actually doing and having an impact. It's like getting the funds to actually start having the machines and doing something.
Thank you very much. And what kind of role do you play in climate change? On a personal scale?
Yeah, I think education or like sharing the story so other people also understand how they can contribute. So both with the recycling plastic, but also with the students of like, opening doors for others to start doing their own thing, whatever their own thing is.
And what is the challenge of your students at the moment regarding climate change?
I think a lot of students are wondering, as a designer, does it make sense to still produce things? So the making part, we already have so many stuff around us, so what can they contribute? And so it's a lot also about sourcing materials, where does it come from? The link of the designer, the role in the ecosystem of like capitalism as a big ecosystem, where do you place yourself? And how do you deal with them? I think they heard, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I still see a lot of people standing, which means it's not all designers. Let me go here then. Who are you?
I'm Philippe. I'm an architect, so a designer in a way, but I'm involved actually in, let's say, the social transition. Right now I see that the transition towards a circular future is a lot around materials. And I think that to create a sustainable future in which climate change is not existing anymore would be one where the social transition has a big impact. But I don't see anyone running for it within my field.
Okay. And why did you come here?
Well, knowing Foundation We Are, knowing that they do interesting stuff, curious about the talks, and really wonderful to see you again.
Thank you very much. It could be nice to come and see me. Thank you very much, Philip. I still see some people standing. Why am I asking all these questions? Because the Unexpected Encounters is all about collaborating. It's about collaborating with different people from different fields, right? And there's a focus within this design program, which is scientists. Are there also some scientists in the audience? I used to be a scientist. Okay, well, let me run over to you. Who are you? What's your background?
Mathematics and physics. Yeah.
and what brings you here?
Just curiosity, but I for the past couple of years I've been consulting with for governments also on climate change issues, but more like on the mathematical side of it.
And do you work together with designers or architects, or how do you work?
Never with an architect, but sure with designers, yeah, like usually multidisciplinary groups of people, yeah.
Why is that important? In what way does that contribute to your work and your mission?
Well, I don't know everything. They don't know everything. I mean, you have to work together, no? It's really not much more deep than that, I think. We just have to figure stuff out together.
And does that all go by itself, or is it sometimes also challenging?
No, I mean, I think it goes very well, actually. Yeah, I mean, I know some people I can work with. They have different backgrounds. Actually, one is an architect, now that I think of it. But Yeah, we just work together very well, and we write reports, and we try to help governments occasionally to figure stuff out, like what to do with water and that kind of stuff.
I was actually having a conversation with a scientist today at the University of Utrecht, and they actually said, well, it's actually quite hard for us to work together with all these different disciplines because we have such a different language, and also the people are asking from us something that we're not that good at. For example, we have to write a story from our research that has to be understood by many people so that people can bring it into practice. And therefore, we really need to collaborate because it's something that we, at least, still not can do. So I'm very interested in then why do you work together with other people in such an easy way? What is your magic?
I think what you're saying is exactly what you need to do at the start. You have to develop a shared vocabulary. So you have to start to explain to each other what you think a word means, and then you'll find out that words often don't mean the same things to different people. So you just write them down, and you have discussions about it. It's yeah, I think a lot of scientists just don't think about this kind of stuff because they're too busy writing grants, and that's yeah, they're not really asking.
And how can we find you later on?
What do you mean, find me?
What is your email address? What is your phone number? Where do you live?
All right, I'll write it down at some point, okay?
Because he knows he has the magic. He has the magic. Okay, you can all sit down. Yeah, so welcome here at the Unexpected Encounter number 3, which is about how do we see climate change, which is part of the Collaborations for Future. We've invited 3 speakers. We will talk about their personal motivations, of course. We will talk about how did they actually come to a point where they really choose for climate change, and how does that work? What does their day look like? What are they feeling they are responsible for? How they are really creating impact, and how do they envision the future? We've gone to the heart of the matter, and I would like to start with something a little bit different. Please close your eyes. Because the heart of the matter today is indeed, how is climate change made visible to us? How do we picture or create a picture of something so complex? Let's create a first impression of us together, quickly. Think of climate change. What do you see? Come up with the 3 words to describe your image. Keep your eyes closed. And when I come to you, you share your 3 words. The rest keeps the eyes closed. 3 words.
Water, ecosystems. I imagine something about flow, but I cannot really, let's say flow.
Thank you very much.
Warm, big, and slow.
Warm, big, and slow.
Blue, brown, yellow.
Blue, brown, yellow.
Too much water, silence, and nothing.
Thank you.
Chaos, rain, and drought.
Thank you.
A lot of products, a lot of clothing, emptiness.
Thank you.
Water, drowning, and empty city.
Thank you.
Water, silent, spring.
Thank you.
Waste, water, and societies.
Waste, water, and society.
Rising sea levels, animals getting extinct, and wildfires.
Thank you.
Breakdown of social structure, drought, and misery.
I have a depression here. Can we get some help? Thank you.
Ice, fire, and water.
Ice, fire, and water. Very elemental.
Extinction, forest fires, and drafts.
Thank you.
storm, and ignorance.
Heat, storm, and ignorance.
Scarcity, panic, and extinction.
Thank you.
Warm, earth, and universe.
Warm, earth, universe.
War and biodiversity and famine.
Famine?
Famine, yeah, like hunger.
Yeah, okay.
Resilience, time frame, and entropy.
Okay. Last but not least.
Fire, pain, and community.
Thank you very much. That's very nice that we ended this whole series with community. Please open your eyes. We were quite on the same level. I heard a lot of water. I got a little bit depressed with the gentleman over there as well. There was one was a little bit out about products, clothing. Yeah, that was, I think, the only one who's really addressing it, I think. Thank you for doing that. I didn't share mine, did I? I think it was on the same level. A lot of water, a lot of ice, and indeed the loss of diversity. That's what I also feel when I did this exercise with myself, when I prepared myself. It's almost time to get to our speakers. But before we do that, I want to look at a little clip from a documentary. Please, let us see the first clip.
We are told that the ice caps are melting, but not all ice caps are melting. Actually, when we look at the Earth, you know, we got two poles. And yes, one of the poles is melting, but the other one isn't. So, it all levels out. We shouldn't worry so much. And even if changes come, you know, changes have always been coming to the climate. It has always been colder and warmer, and we are not stupid. We can handle that. Maybe it was a little bit too denigrating. Yeah, that was not good, no?
Oh, I love that. I love that. That is actually critical. We have people promoting policies that...
Yeah, Gideon, what is this little clip about?
So this is like a kind of workshop that I got in the Heritage Foundation in America, like 2000, I don't know, 16 or something. So they're really they get paid. They're a think tank, and they get paid by the fossil fuel industry to come up with all kinds of to make reports that climate change isn't really real. That make in order to make people doubt the reality of climate change. So they lobby a lot against everything that is for the climate. Yeah, and so everybody who wants change is like their enemy. So I went there to get a workshop. So how do they sell their shit? So there you saw me talking like a climate change denier, and the guy who was standing next to me, he's one of he's a big lobbyist over there. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Let's do one little measurement here of our audience. No Mentimeter, just a people meter. Who feels like they are a climate change denier? Please stand up. None of you? Not even in doubt? No, none of the time? Not a single moment you doubt it? Okay, I see somebody here. Yeah. You go, get up. Yeah. I'm standing next to you. I'm also standing. So why do you sometimes are in doubt?
Well, I guess kind of in my daily life, I push it back because it's so big that I don't really know. So it kind of stays in the background, and I feel like part of me is trying to deny it so that it's not constantly there. So yeah, I do think there's a part of me that does deny it.
Can I get a big round of applause for this answer? Yeah, Gideon, we were wondering maybe you needed to explain it, but this explains it all, right?
Yes, I completely agree with her. I think everybody is a in some ways, on some level, a climate denier. I am too, so I join your group. And I think it's a constant fight for every human being to face reality, and to face reality during climate change is difficult and painful. So that's why, denying is one of our specialties as human beings, I think. And it also has a very big upside. You don't feel pain, and you can just continue your life. It has a downside as well if you are in denial of reality, but reality doesn't mind. So the change goes on, and the less we do, the world or physics doesn't care for our stupidity. So the effects will just be worse if we do nothing and stay in denial.
So the next time you think climate change denier, that's not me, maybe you are. When we were talking about it, indeed, I also had to admit I am during the day. I took a little bit too long of a shower. I was driving a little bit too hard. I was driving. I had children. I thought, it's never going to be right. Can I get a big warm applause for our first speaker, Gideon Levy, who is a documentary filmmaker. Please sit down wherever you feel like. Of course, known from, for example, Klimaatontkenners from 2016. Who saw this documentary? Klimaatontkenners, yes, there. We just saw a little clip of it. Vaarwel Amerika, who has seen this one from 2020. Okay, still a lot of homework to do. And then, of course, Trump and the Joden from 2022. All great work that you can still see at Tudok, right? But you're also a founder of an NGO. Why? Why did you start an NGO, and what is this NGO all about?
So, you hear me? So I made a film called Goodbye America. It's a film about climate scientists who work in the United States for the United States government. And I started to film them when Trump got elected, because I was wondering, what would it mean if you're a climate scientist and you work for the United States government and your boss is a climate denier? So what will that mean for your job? So I found a few people, and one of those scientists was a woman called Emily Wilson, and she was a developer of an instrument that measures greenhouse gases, and it was a revolutionary instrument, and it took her about 10 years to develop this instrument with a very big team. She had a very big lab, and she had a very important position. And this is when I met her in the last stage of the development, and I think shit hit the fan within that year. That within NASA they were starting to make cuts, and where did they start? Of course, the department where they measure the atmosphere, and so her program was cut eventually, and she got another job at NASA, and all the instruments went into some kind of cupboard. And for the film, it was really a drama. And so I kept on following her. In the film, you also see that she comes to Holland, and I introduce her and her instrument to people of the KNMI. And they all said, well, that's a fantastic instrument. We would love to have that instrument. And but the instrument wasn't ready, so it stayed in the cupboard, and I finished the film. And all the time in the back of my mind, I mean, there were a lot of scientists that I followed in this film, and who all had tragic stories, but her story stuck with me, and especially this instrument, this machine that we really needed. So, and I wrote up something about it. So how can I start up a NGO, a stichting, to help her? But I thought, well, I'm a filmmaker, I should just let it go. But then a few years later, Corona struck. I was watching the ceiling.
Had nothing to do.
Like all of you.
But
so
be frustrated.
Yes, so then I said, okay, Gideon, this is a sign, you've got to work. This is everybody is home, so you can reach everybody. So I started to make calls and try to help Emily to revive the instrument. And that's the NGO that I started, the Greenhouse Gas Monitor. And our first aim is to get that machine up and running.
And how far along are you then?
We're almost there. Yeah. So I now know a little bit more about science and about how difficult it is to really achieve something new. But we're almost there, and it looks really promising. So I'm very excited. Yeah.
Okay, I'm very curious. Maybe we'll get back to it later.
Yep.
It's time for me to introduce Veerle van Herk. Please welcome her to the stage with a warm welcome. Image editor of The Correspondent. Studied illustration herself at the Willem de Koning Academie in Rotterdam, but also Arts and Society at the University of Utrecht. And you are really connecting visual artists to journalists, aren't you?
I am, yes.
And how do you balance it with your own work? Are you still also illustrating yourself?
Yeah, partly. Yeah, one day a week. Yeah, but I think I use that way of thinking really in my work as an image editor, and I think it's really nice because some stories are just better to tell through photography or film, and it's really nice that I can still think in these media but don't need the skills to create it. I can work with whoever.
And when did you graduate? 2019, somewhere there?
I think the Willem de Koning illustration was in 2020.
20.
During the first lockdown. And then 2 years later, the masters. Yeah.
Okay. And you thought, well, I love The Correspondent. I love their pick of choice for illustrations and graphics. Instead of putting my own work there, I'm going to work for them. Why did you do that? Why did you choose that?
Yeah, maybe because I don't see myself as a typical illustrator. I don't want to be only behind my desk, but I really like to collaborate and to be part of the story from the beginning and really work together with journalists. So yeah, I think also during my studies I've always searched for places where I can combine both the image making and the more in-depth research and just engaging with all sorts of societal topics. So yeah, I think Correspondent was the perfect place for that. Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit fast forward, just a short answer. We were talking about this collaboration between different people or different backgrounds. Does the collaboration between the artists and the journalists always go perfectly well?
No, it's sometimes really hard to convince journalists why art should also be seen as a form of journalism. But I think comparing to other newspapers or media, we have a bit of a different approach, and I know the journalists are also familiar with our way of using images with stories, and I think also especially for the kind of journalism that we have, because we're not really focusing on the news of today. I don't know if you all know The Correspondent, but the idea is that we are not focusing on the news of today, but more look at all the developments that are behind the news, and in order to get a better understanding of the world and all the things that are going on every day, instead of only focusing on the exceptional or like what we see on the front page of the newspapers.
Yep.
And I think using or combining this with art also gives, it's also something like the artists also have researched this topic and they put a lot of time in it, and it's a different approach than just showing what is written in the text. It's just thinking about, okay, how shall we visualize this story and what perspectives do we choose? So I think, yeah, it works very well for the kind of stories and The Correspondent. Yes.
Did you experience that maybe a visual artist really changed the perspective of the journalist?
Yeah.
Or maybe broadened the perspective?
Yes, yeah, it's hard to come up with an example, but I think, yeah, maybe I can show some examples later this evening. Then maybe I can.
I'll give you time. Yeah,
yes.
we'll get back to it.
Yeah.
Talking about changing perspective, who dares to interrupt me every now and then? Who has great feeling for dynamics, and who has an interest in changing perspective? Everybody's like, if nobody comes to me, I come to you. I thought you were very quirky. So I'm going to pick you. So this is a card. Somewhere between 2003, as you see, and 2033, you can give us a timeout to change perspective, to broaden our perspective. So I give it to you. You choose your moment to interrupt. I think you are bold enough, aren't you? It's time for our last speaker to introduce Christian Clauwers, all the way from, is it Brussels? Oh, Antwerp. Came from Antwerp. Documentary photographer with a specialty in oceans and the polar regions. I just said to him, it's quite cold, and he was like, it's not cold here. Which is really funny. You have a different public, I think. Of course, we all have, I think, some doubleness in the public that we reach, but you also reach out to the governments, right? To a more professional, scientific field. Is that correct? Hello.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, it works. That's correct. Actually, to be more precise, I reach out to a lot of audiences, different audiences. What I do is I bridge with image. So my background is political science. I started in the Flemish Parliament.
Yep.
Belgium is a federation, so for the Flemish, I worked in the Flemish Parliament as a communication advisor. And then in 2014, after 8 months of networking, I managed to enter the global seed vault in Svalbard. And this is quite an inaccessible place. And this is where I got even more aware of this conflict between man and nature. And that's really the starting point in every photo that I take, every project that I take. And since then I became professional as well. So I had the mission, it's a life's mission, to raise awareness on topics like biodiversity decline, not only fauna but also flora, also our food patterns and everything, but also rising sea levels, the consequences of the impact of global warming and climate change in general. And so what I do is the mission statement, as you know, like formally, is really to bridge through image the industry, governments, so diplomacy spheres, and also the scientific institutes. So I collaborate with all those three. So I work for governments, or with, not for, sorry, big difference.
Yes.
I'm completely independent and apolitical.
Okay.
So of course I have an opinion, but it doesn't matter. You can ask me my opinion, I will give it to you, but that's not what I do. So what I do is really on the front line of climate change in a very neutral way, as far as this is possible with image. So I consider myself to be a documentary photographer. I go there and document what is at stake and document the impact that is already happening.
Okay, thank you very much. Of course, we have those photos. We're not going to spoil it yet. We will do that a little bit later. But what if you and me are sitting on a birthday and my Tante Rietje is sitting here, and you need to explain your job to my Tante Rietje, who's really not into all of this. How would you explain in baby language to my Tante Rietje what you do?
That's a good, nice question, I like it. Well, I would say that I'm a photographer, and I make stories to make people understand that we are part of nature.
Okay, and then she asks, then what kind of photos do you make?
Then I would say, well, I go on ships to islands, but I also go on ships to the cold regions, polar regions, and then I will explain, you know, North Pole, South Pole, and I will document the purest places on this planet. And by saying that, I will probably raise more questions, which I like. So I will try to explain that there is still some purity left.
Yes.
And that I will try to explain, maybe without words, that humans leave an impact. And the impact is really becoming big. So, yeah.
So always bring Christian to your birthdays. This means a big round of applause also for our three speakers here. Can you take us back to the moment that you thought, okay, I'm a filmmaker, I can make some photos, I can make beautiful illustrations, and I'm going to pick climate change as my topic. Can you please take us back to the moment that you started to think, yes, I'm going to put my working life to this topic, which is so complex? Gideon, you already have the answer?
Well, the thing is that I would love to make films only about climate change because it's such a broad subject. But I'm not. I'm making films about many different things, and but most of the time when I start to make a project, I'm afraid to say that it. Like 90% it starts out of frustration, anger, embarrassment, things like that. Things that if something really gets to me, then I've got some fuel to make a project about, because most of my projects take a longer time. So you need really, you need some kind of fuel that makes you want to finish it and really tell the story. So and climate change denial really triggered me, because I was really wondering how can you what happens to someone when he starts doing to really get into the industry of trying to convey to people like bullshit that hurts not only all of us but also himself or herself.
And then you thought, well, I really have to go.
I
for
want to
this
know
topic.
those people. I want to look them in the eye.
Yeah.
I want to know how they do it, and most of the time when you are, I find it's a kind of trick that I have used often. When you talk to people that you really despise, it also works very much if you just hug them.
Okay.
And says, I want to be like you, and how do you do it? And explain me what you do, because people love to explain what they do. I mean, I like to tell about making movies, maybe you like to tell about your job, so that's just human nature. So, and it worked, because if I would have, I've also come up to climate deniers trying to convince them that they were wrong, but that is boring for the audience to see. It's much more fun, and you learn much more if you just say, well, you're fantastic, and try to be honest in your interest, and then you be surprised what you learn.
But I also saw in your documentaries that people were really also doubting you as you were sitting at the table, and they were really clear about, but you are from the Netherlands, and you that lady, for example, in that restaurant, they despise you as well, don't they? How do you break through their trust? You do have their trust.
Yeah.
Because they give their story to you.
Yes.
But I see them doubting
what
to say and what not to say. How do you level that? How do you handle that?
I'm just, I try to hold back my opinion a little bit and just ask questions and try to learn how they think, because I'm not there to convince them. I'm making a movie, and I want to tap into their minds in order to show other people what is the general thought amongst certain people. So then it doesn't work to say, well, you're wrong. I just try to invite them and to tell me their story, their opinion, and why do they think the way they think.
Are you also contributing already to climate change in that moment when you are filming and when you are interviewing? Are you already contributing in your role as a filmmaker in that heat of the moment?
Well, I'm sure contributing to pollution because I fly over to America.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why I started out being a filmmaker was that I had the ambition to have a little influence, to hope to better the world in some ways by telling stories and by filming them. Yeah.
And when the work is done, and when the result is there, the movie is there, it's produced, it's being shown, it's being viewed. How do people respond? Is it very broad, or can you maybe elaborate a little bit on that?
In general, in general, when you make a film and people get angry, you did something right, probably.
Do people sometimes really get angry?
Yes, yeah, many.
Could you give an example?
Well, the craziest thing that I've ever encountered is that but it has nothing to do with climate change. But I made a film about a terrorist attack on an airplane, and in the film something crazy happens because the people who had did fraudulent things with the evidence just admitted it on camera, and that was so crazy that after like half a year another film came out where those people like retracted their words. so which was really crazy. And they were one was the head of the FBI and one was the head of the Scottish secret police. So those two people, they managed to let another documentary maker make another film to prove that they were right or something. That was really crazy. Yeah. I mean, I've encountered many people who have become angry about my films, who say, "Oh, that's bullshit, and you're crazy, man." But that's okay. That happens a lot. But that somebody makes another film, that is something.
Then what does that do to you?
Oh, that made me really proud.
Proud, yeah?
Yeah. To be honest, yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Why? Why does I can also imagine
because
that you
how did they do that? To make an old documentary, an international big documentary, it was ridiculous. Yeah, like there is also, you're very naive when you think, I'm for 25 years now, I'm a filmmaker. So you start off and you think, I'm going to change the word with a film. That doesn't happen. But the funny thing is that those people who were in this film, they also thought the same thing. That if we make a film that counters that film, then the world changes. It doesn't.
So you also have the humor to counter that.
Yeah.
I see you nodding. Do you also encounter these kinds of situations with your photographies?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I have a lot of reactions worldwide. Mostly. Well, it's always the same argument of the climate deniers. They would say, well, it's a cyclic event, which is true. But it's not true in the end, because it's the pace that is different, it's a decline, and the pace of the decline of biodiversity that is really alarming. It's a level of CO2 in a very short amount of time that is in the atmosphere now. So it's obvious that it's an anthropogenic contribution that was never seen before. And some, IPCC scientists are talking about the sixth mass extinction, and I believe we are facing that, but that's my opinion again. So I see it as my role to document as much as I can to maybe convince people. It's not really about convincing, but I don't like manipulating, I don't like to be an activist. I believe activism is very useful, and I have a lot of respect for actually all kinds of activism, to the extent that they don't, get violent or something, So normal kind of activism, but I see my role as a witness.
What is normal activism?
Yeah, well, you know what I mean. It's just like
no, I don't.
No, just
no.
Don't get too far, like intruding. That's the word, right? Like getting violent or intruding into a person's sphere, or like some activists are really getting too, violent, like verbally or maybe more.
So is this your honest feeling, or is it also a strategy?
Yeah. No, it's an opinion.
It's an opinion.
I don't know why I talk about my opinion. No, I see myself as a witness.
I don't have an opinion. I talk about my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
I do have an opinion.
Okay.
Of course I do.
Yeah.
I think it's important that people have an opinion.
Okay.
But
great.
in my mission, I'm here also to tell about the mission, the importance of image to document.
Yeah.
As you believe as well, I think that image is a really useful tool, a universal language that everyone speaks. I learned out of the Flemish Parliament that these policy reports, strategy reports, with my background studies, it's a specific way of thinking, and the outcome is always different than the data of a scientist. You know what I mean? It's complete different language. They think different, they act different. So I see it as my role to really be amongst all those people.
Yep.
And document scientific work, but also climate change, and bring it to the diplomacy level, showing what is at stake, showing what these scientists are doing and why, and the instruments and methods, and just explaining.
I'm going to ask the both of you, because you both gave an example of how something could also work. But I would like, because of course, you were talking about climate depression, actually, right? In the beginning, when everybody was with closed eyes. But please take a moment and come up with an example as concrete as possible. You have to think, this is why I make my work. This is why I go there and go into actually, I think, dangerous places as well. And yeah, of course, have this kind of passion, and it doesn't always result in what you want. But please come up with a concrete example that you think, this is why I do what I do. And then let me first get to Veerle. So you've been sitting there and listening. At the Correspondent, they really have a clear mission. And are you really getting along with that mission, or do you have your personal mission within your work?
Yeah, I feel myself part of this mission.
What is that mission?
No, well, I think especially when talking about climate change, this mission really works well, because I think we should approach climate change not as only looking at the extremes, or like the extreme weather, or like when something is happening, but more see it as part of also our social, economical problems or issues, and something that is happening every day, and that we, in all sorts of sides of society, we have to see climate change as part of that, and not only when something happened somewhere. So yeah, if that answers your question. Yeah.
And your personal mission as an image editor at the Correspondent, what is your role there?
Well, I'm responsible for, or I decide what the images we pick for the articles. So I get the articles from the authors from when they're still drafts, and then I get to think about how we will visualize these stories, and most times we also discuss with the authors to ask, like, what is really what you want to reach, what is really what you want to stick to the reader, and how can we with the images help to reach that goal. But also I think it's interesting to see how through images we can add new perspectives on certain topics, and that's, I think, when it's really interesting to work with existing projects from artists with their articles, and also to have the luxury of using the expertise of these image makers, because when it comes, actually with all topics, but also with climate change, we really start searching for people that are already working with these topics and really can contribute to these topics with their own research or what they already know. Yeah.
I have so many questions for you, but maybe you can already answer many of those questions if you take us along on your day. You get up, and then what do you do? How do you start your day?
Well, we start with coffee every day, and then we have this planning of all the articles, and I'm with a group of 2 image editors and 2 information designers and 1 lead, and yeah, we just decide who's going to work for what article. I think we have most times about 1 or 2 weeks before the publication date is there to come up with an idea for the articles, and yeah, we just start reading the articles. Sometimes we brainstorm with each other about what we want to visualize, or we ask the author when we don't understand certain topics that well, or we do some research ourselves into the topics, and then it's actually just Googling and for nice projects or exhibitions on these topics. Or it also really depends on the kind of articles. Sometimes the articles are really explainers, so you also want images that help to get that point and to make it more clear. So it would not work to give a whole new perspective from an artist on that topic, because it just won't make sense. But sometimes articles are more meanderend, how would you say, like philosophical or poetic.
Yeah.
And then I think those articles are really good for other projects and making connections.
But may I ask, I mean, you're quite young, just coming from the academy, and then you had your masters, and then you read these articles, it's quite complex matter, right? And then you have to just come up with an idea of how can we visualize that. How did you start to do that after your studies?
Well, asking a lot to the authors as well.
Could you also just call them and
we're working together. I mean, we're the same floor, so yeah, we're just working together. But yeah, but I think the authors are already doing a good job in the way they translate the knowledge from scientists or policymakers into stories that are readable and understandable. And sometimes we try to make them even more accessible through the images.
Yeah. You brought a couple examples. Maybe we can take one of the examples where you can really show us how you work and how you really contribute together with the author and the visual artist, and how you really came with actually an extra layer within the article. Which one would you like to show us?
I have to think what I brought. Maybe. Well, this is not so interesting to talk. Maybe this one, because as a preparation for this evening, I dived into our archive to see what images we are publishing with articles related to climate change, and it was actually really nice to see a kind of pattern, and also our role as image editors, because looking at articles from around 2015 or more the beginning of climate journalism, you see, I mean, I was not there, so it was not my decision, but you see that the way we write about climate change is really as explaining people what it is and how it affects us, but also in the images, you really see a distance, and we look at it from a distant view to nature. And later, I think the tone of voice of the articles change, and they are more urgent or warning. And I think these articles, it's also, you see also that we as image editors know better that we can take different perspectives towards these questions. So I think these two articles really show that. For example, the one on the right, we decided to I should have my glasses on because I cannot read it.
What do you want me to read?
Wait.
Wat een klein dan doet, maakt toch niet uit? Or
like the first, no, it's really small, also with glasses.
Met wereldwijde protestacties?
Maybe I just talk about the images. No, but we decided to not show climate change like directly, but picked a series from the photographer Rainer Riedler, who made the series Fake Holidays, and he photographed all kinds of resorts or like holiday resorts where they created fake nature, and it's a bit like the Truman Show. So you sometimes in some images you really see the globe, and it's quite absurd. But we tried we use these images to make people think about how we respond to climate change, and adding a second layer by looking at our human behavior. And I think these images you can read as how we are ignoring, or maybe how we as humans try to shape nature, but also really want to stick to this image of nature. So we created ourselves if it's not possible to go there. And we republished this series more recently when it was the news that the winter sport resorts, the ice was melting, so it was not possible anymore to go skiing. And then we published this series again, just like more ironical, like this is the future of our holidays. if we are not able to go to France or Italy to ski, then maybe we should create these landscapes ourselves, but more ironical, like try to make people think about how we respond to climate change and how we still keep ignoring it.
This is 2019.
Yes.
You really looked into your archive
Yes.
and figured, hey, it really changed.
Yeah.
What changed?
Well, I think in the beginning, it was really hard to. That's also what I discussed with some image editors that already worked then. But that it was really hard to find projects from artists or photographers that were really focusing on this topic and brought their own expertise into this topic. So maybe I don't know if you can switch to the really first articles. I think it's number 1. It's in the file name. Yeah, this one. So these are some articles from the beginning.
Is this connecting to the images that we were imagining when we closed our eyes?
Yeah, I was also thinking about
Ice,
that.
water.
Yeah. But in a way, I think
We're running behind with our images in our heads.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it's so far away from us, and we're not interacting with it, or especially the blue marble or the earth, like which is also connected to the overview effect, the idea that astronauts have when they see the earth from space, that they get this feeling that they have to protect the earth. But it's interesting that we really started with the articles that really zoom out and really show nature, and but we didn't look at our role as humans in this problem. So it was still very distant. Yeah. And then
is this something you recognize as a photographer?
Yeah, I do. I haven't been in space, but I'm aware of the effect.
Yeah.
And it's a blue planet, huh? It's all water.
Yeah,
so I have to
true.
protect it.
And you also recognize this?
Of course, yeah. Yeah, in one of the films that I made about climate change, I also use this image of looking from space to Earth. It's very powerful.
Yeah. And now in 2024, what changed?
I'm wondering if this still is powerful sometimes.
Apparently, we still we were all mentioning kind of this image, right?
Yeah,
Many of us were mentioning water and ice and quite distant pictures.
Is it because they are powerful, or is it because we are used to these images because we see them so often? That's what I am wondering.
What do we think here?
Isn't that related to generation? Because I think that we are, well, on average, somewhat between 20 and 40. And I think that children age 5 to 10 right now, for them, Earth as a marble isn't the great image, but plastic waste piles, that's their youth image. So I think for us, it's precious to keep, and I think there's a generation coming that is far more, how to say that, negative about it, because their images are way different.
I'm curious. I was in the car with my 5-year-old listening to children podcast on the way here, and indeed it was a lot of, it was a different image, I think. But you say 2040, we are 2040. Somebody's older here. Is there a truth in there? Did the image change?
Well, I can imagine that it's different for kids, that they have another image of what they think that's horrible, like with maybe animals that are hurt or so. That they
It was exactly what the podcast was about, yeah.
Okay, so that's what I would think.
And for you?
I was thinking of water, but I was also thinking about the water nearby us. So I was not just thinking about the big ice caps. Of course, I know about that, but I think also about more nearby, how we see all the levels rising of the little rivers around. And I know that maybe it's different in summer again, but still, you know that there are things going on that are not so really like I was used to.
You also brought an image much later in time, which I think expresses much more. Yeah, a much more realistic image. Maybe you can take us to the article
which one are
with the street light and people playing around it.
Yeah.
About money, but not about money in images.
Yeah.
This one.
This one, yeah. cannot. I forgot the name. It's too bad. But maybe you can
Scroll down.
Yeah. It's Ruben Salgado. Yeah, it's from the series Solar Portraits, and this was an article that was quite recently published by Jelmer Mommers on the COP in Dubai, and it was all about. It was a really big explainer, telling us how that like all the investments that we now have in green energy, if I'm correct, don't measure out, or like it's not that if we are now investing more in green energy that there are less fossil fuels used. I think it was about that.
Yeah, the last unexpected encounter we had here, somebody from Follow the Money, and it was all about money streams, right?
Yeah,
and if you read this article, indeed, it's all about where does the money go, how do we invest, and then connect it to climate change.
Yeah,
but then you come up with these images.
Yeah, so he calls this sad facts in this article, because it's just a list of sad facts, and that we need so much money if we want to. Yeah, like verdriet. But we chose a series from people all over the world that are connected to electricity and light through solar energy for the first time in their lives, and these portraits go together with their personal stories and how it changed their lives. And I chose this because after reading this article, it was really well, not depressing, but really complex and really heavy, and I think I wanted to go back to the essence of where it actually is about, and that's how we can.
But then how does Jelmer respond to that? I mean, he's all about he knows everything about economics.
Yeah, he was part
he's
of
about
this.
numbers and data and. Was he immediately enthusiastic about showing these pictures?
Yeah, because I was really struggling with this article because it was super complex.
Yeah.
So I messaged him and we went through a few projects because there are always many options to show with articles. But I think these images stick the most to us because they are really emotional and sensitive and fragile in a way. And
but not in that a dramatic way. I mean, in a way, it's also hopeful. That, it's at least that's what I also feel. I don't know. Maybe we can go to the public. How do you get this picture when you see a headline? Can we see the headline about the what is it? 4 billion. De vraag van 4 biljoen, the question of 4 billion, hoe geld de toekomst van klimaat bepaalt. And then you see this image. Children, one street light, playing. What does that do to you, for example, here, when you see this?
For me personally, it would be hard to make the direct connection, but it would also make me curious about the article. That's the first thing I would think about. But that's actually what I like about it, because if I would see one of the melting ice caps, I would maybe even skip the article. So this makes it, this is a different approach that I actually like. Yeah.
Yeah. So it sparks. It creates interest. Somebody else, different experience. Here, yeah.
Yeah, I really like the approach that you took, because it really, I think it does speak a lot also to it's also a bit dystopian, because the article says something like 4 trillion or billion for climate change and and for relief, and then once you see that, you assume maybe all that money goes to the rich countries, and we throw in some solar panels for the poor people, and all they get is a street light, and that's it. But it's at the same time, it's also kind of hopeful, so it speaks to both sides.
What was the effect of this choice? Because people can respond on your platform, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have very active conversations about it.
It's
being shared.
I don't remember if sometimes people respond to the images underneath the articles, but it's it's also sometimes guessing, like how do people get the images, but yeah, we try to help the reader a bit by also putting a little text about the decisions we made for like the projects and the articles, or the photographers underneath the article, to also give a bit more context on.
I mean, the correspondent is very known for making, using these kinds of images, really working together with visual artists. How do you evaluate if it works, what you do, if you make the right choices? How do you do that?
Well, we discuss it within our team and with the people that work at the correspondent, but yeah, I think there should be more space for that. Yeah, and
okay.
I really also always hope that people respond to the images, because I think also for many readers they just skip the images. So it's a bit sad, but
for me it's a reason to go to correspondent, to be honest,
yeah.
because of the way you do it.
Yeah.
So maybe we can talk further on that. You want to add something?
Yeah, part of the power of image is that it evokes emotion.
It evokes
so I
emotion.
think it was a difficult question to answer, because at a certain point the ratio stops, you just feel it. It's a very powerful image, and especially together, I like your reaction a lot with the title. It's really evoking curiosity and, also giving hope. So, yeah, so good choice.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, it's with all forms of art, I think. Don't rationalize too much, just feel it.
Yeah.
So,
is this for you a positive example of your work? Is this something you're proud of?
Yeah, for sure.
Great. Let's go to the gentleman. Did you come up with an example that you think, yes, this is why I do what I do?
where shall I start? That's
you have
a
many
difficult
examples?
question, actually. Well, yeah. What is the specific question? Because
well, I asked you to come up with an example, a concrete example of a photo or an image that you created, that you got a response, an effect, that you think, yes, this is why I do what I do. This is why I make these photos.
I will generalize it, not one response, but the youth. I don't have children. I want to have children, but I don't have. It's difficult to combine it with what I do. I will always be away from home, and I don't want that for my child, if I would have a child. So I think when I inspire children, that gives me really an emotional, drive. The drive is there anyway, but that really touches me. So.
Well, this also touches me. Thank you for sharing that. And have you experienced this?
Yeah, many times. Yeah.
Can you take us along on that journey? I'm very curious.
A couple of 3 days ago, I had a mom and calling me saying, "Well, our child, singular, one child, loves your book really a lot. Maybe you should make a children's book." And I'm like, "Yeah, I have this idea for a long time already." Like explaining, you mentioned the podcasts. I'm wondering about the communication, how to communicate to a 5-year-old. I don't have the experience, but I would love to do that in the future. Yeah. So.
Talking about unexpected, I didn't expect this answer from the work I've seen. I've been scanning through your imagery. Let's show it. Actually, some people maybe didn't see it yet. Maybe just show some of these photos.
I'm curious.
This one, for example.
That's
what are we looking
began,
at here?
That's a good one to start. So everything started here for me. 8 months before I took this photo, I saw what is the entrance of the global seed vault. So in Dutch, it's a Wereldzadenbank on Spitsbergen, on Svalbard. So the Norwegian government built this facility in 2 years, finished in 2008, with the sole purpose to store all the copies of genetic banks worldwide of food crops. So the diversity of our food crops for future generations. That's the sole purpose of this, to preserve it and to keep the genetic data, because once animals or plants are getting extinct, extinction means forever. Well, in this era, I know in in certain countries they're trying to resurrect animals that were extinct, but we're not talking about that. So it's really about the biodiversity, the pace of the decline. It's where I saw this conflict and the urge to really get out there and show the photos and show what is at stake and the urgency. So I've been granted access after 8 months. There are only 3 persons on this planet with a key, and it's really inaccessible. So for some reason, it's an emotional story. Can I tell it? Because
Definitely.
last year I went to Sweden to one of the 3 key holders, and I now have a big coffee table book with the president of Kiribati writing a foreword, and Peter Thompson of the UN Special Envoy for the Ocean. So it's really it's something, you know. And I showed them that, and I said, "You look, 2014." I showed them this photo. I showed them the book, and I said, "You opened the door, like symbolically, like zie je dat, letterlijk en figuurlijk." Huh? So you really opened the door. It's where it all began, and you believed in me, and I didn't have anything yet. I did not have any references, just a passion for photography and a curiosity. And he started to cry. He saw the book and he was crying, and I was crying as well at that moment, because I was like, oh my God, you know, it's really. He said, "Thank you for doing what you're doing," and I said, "No, thank you for opening that door," because it's really that triggered me so much.
And why do you think he opened that door for you?
I don't know. He didn't give an answer. He just said, "Well, I believed in you. I saw it in your eyes that you were like you had the genuine purpose to get in, and there are thousands of people trying to get in every year, and it's really impossible. I'm the only Belgian that went inside, so you know." So I had a story to tell.
Can we get a little bit of an applause for taking that step? No, but it's true. I mean, you have to take the risk, right? It's also for you, and also for you, you're taking the risks to meet people, go into conversation about things that, well, maybe they don't want to talk about, choosing images that people maybe don't want to see, going to places that people don't want you to see, and then have an effect. And I know there's somebody in the audience that was really affected by this photo. I'm going to Cornelia over there, who is an architect. From Foundation We Are, organizing a lot of things here. Big round of applause for Cornelia. You saw these images, you were a young architect, and then what happened?
Well, I don't know if it was this specific picture of this building, but when I was graduating in architecture, I saw this and I thought, well, this is probably the types of buildings we will have to come up with to live together on this planet in the coming 100, 200, 300 years. And if you think of typologies of buildings like monasteries, universities, churches, we invented them to serve certain purposes of things that were important for us, to protect things that were important to us. And it seems like this would just be one of these. In a very cultural sense, I think. I think it says more about the culture of who we are as humans than if we will actually manage to save anything.
Can we see more photos of these series? I think we have some more, no? Is this the inside? What are we looking at?
This is my personal favorite.
Oh, this is your favorite.
So,
okay.
Once that door gets open, it's a tunnel of 130 meters deep inside the permafrost in the mountain. You know, they dug it in. And then you come in 3 rooms, and the rooms are like sized from that pillar to that pillar, and really from this wall to that wall with kind of the same height. So that's the size of the room. There are 3 rooms. Capacity is like 4.5 million seed crops, different varieties of. And now we're at 1.2 and so on million. And nobody knows how many crop seeds there are. It's like, you know, in the deep sea, it's the best example. We discover daily new animals. So we still don't know. But we do know that this is now the most complete collection of food variety crops worldwide. And so this is the 3rd room. The 2nd room in 2014, they were already preparing it. The first one was already full. You can see the photos on my website. And this is the 3rd one. And I always give a title to my photo. So this is Into Eternity. We don't know whether it will ever be used. And it's really built for the eternity. But the irony is, and that's for me also part of this story, I think it was 2016 that there was already a leak. So this construction with the tunnel and everything was built to preserve for hundreds of years, for generations and generations to come. But already there was a leak. No seeds were harmed. They're also sealed in boxes, deposit principle and so on. But the tunnel, the access, is slightly, it has an angle. And I talked to the people who have a key, you know, and they said, well, you could just slide down all the way 130 meter deep. So now they enforced everything. But how ironic. The thing was built and permafrost is melting so fast. So this is a story that I also bring out there when I give a lecture about this, you know. It's really, the irony is obvious. I mean,
so the white is, what is it?
Yeah.
Rock or is it ice?
It is ice crystals on concrete,
And
and how do you call it? I think it's lime. Is it limestone? Stone? Okay. Yeah. So they enforced it, and then it's minus 18. So everything is like you see ice crystals everywhere inside. Yeah. So it's pretty cold. But yeah, now I didn't select this photo, but again on my website you can see it. The one room that is full now, it has already two cooling instruments, coolers. So I was like, why do we have to cool?
Yeah.
It's a North Pole. We're 130 meter deep in the permafrost, and we have to cool it down. Yes, correct, he said. It's warming up 4 to 6 times faster in the Arctic region. And so without this, we have only minus 10. And by consensus, international scientific research and so on, crop preservation and preservation should be at minus 18. So we have to cool it even more down, 8 degrees. So that was like, oh my God, you know, these stories are my drive, you know.
Yep.
So I'm so fascinated by it and also curious. It starts with curiosity, of course, and I really want to bring this story out. I mean, people have to know about that.
Yeah, but okay, hold on. I know curiosity. You have to organize to get there. You have to have the quality to make this kind of picture. Also, apparently, you have to have people skills to actually get in. Yeah. Then you have to organize some kind of program, find people to sponsor it, find an audience so you can have that lecture and talk about some topic. And there's, I think, 100 topics in there.
I think I have 3 values.
Okay.
Curiosity. I would say persistence. Definitely. And networking as well. And the third would be respect. So a lot of respect. And respect, it has a lot. It's an ethical contribution. So I did actually a second master degree in global management to find out I would never work in a company like KPMG, right? Anyway, so I'm not made for that kind of job, but I did it because I was like, okay, it's a really good addition to political science, global management, and it gave me a lot of skills. We had a lot of assessments, professional career assessments, and all of them, we did 3. It took a full day, they all gave the same results. Something for me personally, independent with an ethical contribution in the creative activity. So for me it's always visual. Since I was a child, I had a camera, an old Zeiss Icon from my father. This old German camera, completely analog, and I was always fascinated by the fact that you can capture a moment in time. Yeah. And the fact that you can bring so much in an image, you know.
But indeed, a moment in time.
Yes.
And then it changes. You know, they built something and already it changed.
Correct. So it's also, well, I don't want to take the word the whole evening, but there is another construction. It's called the Arctic World Archive. It's inside an abandoned coal mine, and I'm the first Belgian to contribute with my photography, because the purpose is the same, but not preserving food crops, but knowledge, cultural heritage. And my idea, I did 2 projects. The Belgica, I'm assigned by the Belgian government. This is our research vessel, so I do the outreach for the Belgian research vessel. And the Pacific. We will come there with the next photos. I do a lot
talking
of work,
about collaboration also.
A lot of work, 8 years already in the Pacific region, which is very hard to get. It's a pain, but you know, it's so important because that's the region where all this climate impact is really so visible and dramatic, really dramatic. People lose their land. I will come to that with the next photos. But so I took my photos, put them on a reel, and they're inside a coal mine for future generations. Same story.
Okay, to also continue.
Yeah, you
to
should
share
look it up.
story.
Arctic World Archive. It's really interesting.
Arctic World.
Yeah, het Wereldarchief. Arktisch Wereldarchief.
Okay,
World
thank you.
Archive.
Thank you. So, a concrete example, much more social. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, you can applaud, of course. Let's go to the social part of climate change. I think that's really in your line of work, right? It's really about the people, about who actually are making a difference or not making a difference or holding back or doubting. What is a great example of a result that you worked on?
A result? Well,
but
so one of the scenes in the film, which I already talked about, is the scene where Emily comes from America.
Yeah.
Her job is taken from her. The instrument that she worked on for 10 years with, I don't know, so many scientists in NASA. There was I don't know how many millions of dollars was used to get all that research done. And now, when it's almost finished, they cut off the head of this instrument. So when she comes to Holland and the scientists, the top scientists of Holland, who are really like the fin fleur of the atmospheric science, they say, well, this instrument, this is something that we need, because normally, I have to explain, normally those instruments are have the size of a container. So they're huge, they cost millions. A sea container, yes, thank you. And this instrument that Emily developed is as big, so you can pack it as a backpack. So you, as a scientist, if you want to know, okay, what is the how much CO2 is absorbed in the Amazon, or how much is emitted next to Tata Steel, you can just go there with your instrument, put 1 or 2 instruments around the spot that you are interested in, that you want to do research, and you can set it up in a day or something and take measurements. That is the goal. So when those scientists saw this instrument, they said, wow, fantastic. And for me, this scene was very important, because this was a direct evidence of how you can wreck things. Things can go very much broken by policy, and when people said, "Oh, Trump, it's going to be a disaster," but this was how disaster looks like. On one hand, in slow motion, but on the other hand, it was very fast, because he got in, and within a year, her job was cut, and her job was not cut by Trump. Her job was cut by the management of NASA, who was scared. And so preemptively, and those are not like people who don't believe in climate change, but still they did it. So, and we in Holland are, this is like the night before, right? The PVV and VVD are in our government. Probably
may I ask,
the next government.
Because indeed you're talking about the United States all the time, and you really made a choice to go there over and over again to talk to Americans.
Yeah.
Why did you make that choice?
Just let me finish.
Okay,
so
okay.
I wanted to show the audience what a wrecking ball can do, and not by telling them, but to see the communications between this American scientist. And she's in the film. She says, "I hope you can take care of my instrument," like she's giving a baby. So yeah, I thought that was. I hope that added something to the imagination of what it means if you choose people like that, and that's what I am afraid of with our next government. So why did I go to the United States? Because the United States sets the tone and invests a lot of money for climate denying. So that's why for the first film I went to the United States. Yep. And for the second film, like the same thing. I mean, the climate science, if you are a climate scientist, you want to go to the United States because there is so much money. And then Trump came, and what happened? You know, there was like an exodus. They went everywhere, and in the film we witnessed this.
Let your work speak for itself. Let's watch a clip from Vaarwel Amerika. Vraag aan jullie wat dit met jullie doet, als je dit zo ziet. Ik zie sommige mensen heel serieus kijken. Ik zie hier ook wel een glimlach. Wat doet het met jou?
Nou, ik vind het heel goed dat ze gewoon doorgaat tot het gaatje, zeg maar. En volgens mij ook wel met de hoop om dat instrument toch zijn werk te laten doen, maar dan op andere plekken. Maar het is natuurlijk super schrijnend, ja.
Gideon, wat deed dat met jou toen je dat gesprek had?
Ja, nee, dat was gewoon... Het was, ja, aan de ene kant is het nachtmerrie, aan de andere kant...
Sorry? English. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm very sorry.
Yeah. So, when that happened, I was really saddened, but it was exactly what I was afraid of. And in the beginning, you said, what makes you why do you start a project? And I said, well, anger. But of course, curiosity is the same, and I want to understand the world that I live in. So I wanted to see what this wrecking ball could do, and then I saw it happening, And life, I mean, you can think about, oh well, this will happen, but reality is always surprising, and there are always surprises. So yeah.
All the images that you create, whether it's a photo or whether it's imagery around an article or whether it's a documentary in full, of course it brings up conversations, right? You organize those conversations yourself. How do you balance your work in making the images and then also going around selling the story? How do you balance that? And so many caps you have to wear, right?
Yeah, that's correct. There's never enough time. So I try to combine it. So last year I went around the world and I gave lectures in Hong Kong, 2 universities actually, Lingnan and University of Hong Kong. While going through to the Pacific, Marshall Islands, Federal States of Micronesia, Hawaii. I have a strong network in Hawaii. Also with NOAA, that's you will know NOAA, so National Oceanic and Atmospheric Agency of the US. And then on the way back, well, on the way to go, so I first stopped in Argentina. Then I had the Belgian embassy. I do a lot with the embassies, so I try to combine it. So I really plan 8-9 months ahead, and try to combine lectures with exhibitions with my work.
Okay, great combination. How do you do that, Gideon?
It's I don't know. You just survive and you try to sell as much films as you can, and it's very difficult because I would love not to be the one that tries to sell all the films, but in the end, even if you have a producer, you have to do everything yourself, and it's very hard. It's a lot of competition, and there is always a shortage of money, and there is too much to do. So it's a lot of work.
Well, we're talking about collaborations here as well. Which kinds of collaborations are really important for you?
For me, for making films, or
for doing what you do, for making the movies, for getting this conversation going.
So the inner circle is that I'm not a photographer. So the nice thing about your job, and probably also very difficult side of your job, is that you're alone, but you know your crew very well. Yeah.
Who is your crew?
So I have like like camera people and editors and sound engineers that I work with a lot for many years. So and they grow to be like your family, and you can have discussions with them. So that's very nice. So you're not so alone. That helps. But it's also difficult because you when you go somewhere, you're always like intruding with like a tribe. Whereas if you are only with your camera, sometimes I dream about that, because to move on your own, it's much more convenient.
Less
filming is a drag. You are just annoying. But and it's very important that there are people. You just need a few people that really understand what you're doing and that give you trust. Like the person that you encountered.
Yes.
I also was lucky that I encountered some people in my career that really gave me an opportunity and believed in the project while I was still junior. So you really always need people that believe in you, and it's very hard to find those people, but that's the challenge.
And the collaboration with scientists, for example. I mean, when I'm preparing for programs, and it's really complex matter at stake, and also to have conversations about. How do you work together with scientists?
Through this last film, I got a really big network of climate scientists, and it's like you said, scientists, they work their ass off trying to get grants, because also for them, in order to do your work, you need money. So they, like filmmakers, they have to run after money all the time, which is wearing them out, like it's wearing everybody out. So and then of course there's this thing that you talked about with that person, about the difficulty of trying to find the vocabulary, to find the right words, so you can be sure that you talk about the same thing. So that's a challenge also with scientists. And I think for us people in the creative industry, that is one of our assignments, to try to take this science, which is which is completely not understandable or relatable for the audience at large, to make it relatable and to because I mean, science for science, it's nice, but I mean, we should all know what reality looks like. And
yeah, it's also public.
And when you're a
matter,
scientist and you work on the front of science, then it needs translation, and it needs people like us.
Veerle, I see you nodding, because I think it's also happening at the correspondent, right? That you have all this research going on, and you have the journalists, the authors, investigating and coming to a story, and then you work together with the visual artists. How do you get to a collective understanding of the matter?
Yeah, I was more nodding because I was thinking of something else. Because I think maybe you can just go in that direction.
Yeah, bring it in.
Because I think like the storytelling part should be really part of the studies of at universities.
Okay.
More. I think that's.
And how can we push that
with
forward?
This program? And maybe also just finding maybe from the beginning already connecting with artists, and more collaborations between different disciplines. I think that's really important, and I think like you also said, so many people are struggling to find a shared language. So I was more thinking about that, but I think at the correspondent I have the luxury that we have the journalists that do most of the research. So sorry, I forgot about the specific question you had.
I was just imagining that you indeed, at the correspondent, it's happening, right? You have these different layers, and in the end there is an article that is quite readable, with very essential information combined with images, so that also people who have maybe more affection with images also understand. So something magical is happening there, and I was just wondering how you do that. How do you come to a collective understanding of the matter at stake?
Just by
within only 2 weeks.
Talking about it a lot with all the people that are involved in the creating the story, and also be critical on what we are telling and how people interpreted it, and just talking a lot about it, I think, from different angles and perspectives.
Yeah, great.
What I've encountered many times is that especially with climate scientists, imagine you're a climate scientist.
Yes.
If you're a climate scientist, I mean, for already like 30 years, for scientists, if you're working in the field of climate science, there's no doubt about all of this. They know. For 30 years, like so.
No, people are doubting them now. Some of them, sometimes.
Actually 40 years now, right?
Yeah.
Hansen was in the end of the 70s in Congress in America.
Yeah.
So that's already 4 decades. Yep. So, and I've encountered many climate scientists who said, okay, maybe we should do some more introspection, because maybe we are also at fault, because we know all of this, and we already know enough, like already 20, 30 years ago, maybe we didn't tell the story right. And that made some scientists really depressive, because they know better than all of us what that really means, what all those data really mean, that for them that's also so harsh. It's not to put the blame on them, but it's just
no, of course not.
They took it upon themselves. So.
As you already are working on this, how do you think we can help them? How can we contribute to their work?
I think every human being has the obligation to try to understand the world that he's living in, and so asking questions and things like that. And
have more conversations as you do at the correspondent with them. Yeah. And you?
Being inquisitive. That's
being inquisitive? What does that mean, to be inquisitive?
Like curiosity. Out of curiosity, you want to investigate, you want to understand. So you want to put places in their context.
Who should be more inquisitive?
I'm not going to say who should be, but I think everyone
should
be.
Everyone.
It's a moral obligation, I agree with that.
It's a moral obligation to be inquisitive.
We are humans on this planet, yeah.
Awareness?
That's what you were saying also. So people should become more aware indeed of the fact that we are part of nature, that we are hardly in touch with what we are, who we do, what we feel, how we think. So,
Let me go to Merel, because she's my fellow mission partner in Bursting Bubbles. How do you want to reply to this?
So I always worked in advertising, and at one point I thought, okay, we can do one thing very well, and that is telling stories and convincing people to change their behavior, for example, buy something. And then I thought, okay, this skill, nice, but can you use it to talk about climate change? And I think here as well, like talking about these scientists so I started a scientific study and I work a lot with scientists, and they often cannot tell the story, it's not their skill, and I think that's okay, because if you look at the commercial industry, there's a whole new industry built to tell the story, to translate from buy this to make an interesting campaign out of it. And I think actually looking at science, we should not put this pressure on the scientists, but we have to create this new industry that does it for them. And I think you're already in this industry of doing it.
It's a very nice bridge to how we can end this evening, to imagine the future. Imagine the future of visual representation regarding climate change, right? When I'm looking here at the experts, in 5 years, 3 to 5 years, how do you imagine your field changed?
Never thought of that. Probably AI, right?
AI? There it is.
It's difficult for me because as a documentary photographer, I don't like AI, you know. I want the camera as a witness, not the computer. I mean, not the generated whatever. So it's a difficult question. Never thought of it actually.
Well, think of it a little bit more. Gideon, the future of your field of expertise, how did it change in 3 to 5 years?
Well, I think storytelling will always be there in some kind of form, and I don't know what it will be. I hope it will be exciting, and I hope more people can become storytellers. And today, everybody with a phone can become a storyteller, make a podcast, or make a film. When you asked us in the beginning the question, I thought was brilliant, that to imagine climate change, we all had kind of very and I did two negative visions of the future. So if I think about the future, and if I think about climate change, one of the things that I start to learn more and more is that it's also a problem of uncare. So if we care more about ourselves, about the person next to us, about our families, about the world, about nature, then things can change. And I think if we care more about our scientists, we can help them, because if you're a scientist and you are studying climate change, you don't have to be a presenter of an evening. You are a climate scientist. So I think it starts, I think we have to think more about care and what it really means and what it does to us, and the culture that we live in, that it celebrates the opposite, like uncare, and more focuses on the individual and say, well, you can do anything, you can become anything, and there are no limits. Well, we know that that's the problem, that the earth is finite and there are limits, and that we should care.
You're talking about a culture change.
Yes.
For climate change.
Yeah.
Okay. You, Veerle?
I think I hope that, like, when you're asking this same question from like the beginning of this talk, that we have an other image in our head when we think about climate change, and I hope that it can be a story that is more about, or more focusing on imagining a future that goes into the good direction, or more like the problem solving, and how we can be part of that positive change instead of only the negative parts of it. So I mean, we should still keep on going with telling these stories and make people aware of the urgency of this. But I hope parallel to that, there can also be a story that is more focused on imagining futures. I think especially for designers and artists, this is something we can do, because we can work with things that are still are not there, or are uncertain, and yeah.
It's nice that you're actually helping me to make almost the end, create the end of this evening. I had an assistant in the audience that didn't really do the job. Oh, I didn't look at you. Oh, I thought you were bold enough to just yell at me. But it's nice. What I wanted to do with you, so we closed our eyes in the beginning, and we were just really honest, very personal, shared these words of what climate change actually, what kind of image it brings up, right? Could you please close your eyes again for me? We've been talking about climate change and how we created this image, and how that people with certain expertise, certain talents, are creating images around this topic that is so complex. And now we imagine the future. In 3 to 5 years, something changed. We were talking about a different culture to support climate change, to contribute to. Veerle was talking about taking a role in there, bringing it closer to us. What if indeed in 3 to 5 years we brought climate change a little bit closer to us, and we found our role in there? Now what do you see? Climate change in 3 to 5 years, and you found your role. I'd like to ask you again, what do you see? Just come up with 3 words, can be small sentences, and let's do a last round. Climate change, 3 to 5 years forward, you found your role, you took a look around, what do you see?
A neighborhood with slikken en schorren.
A neighborhood with slikken en schorren, thank you.
I'm a bit blank, so please give me some.
Okay, I'll come back to you.
Something about making shelters for animals.
Making shelters for animals. Veerle?
Yeah, more shared knowledge, I think, or like same direction.
Shared knowledge. Here?
Having conversations. Yeah.
Conversations?
Gardening with children in growing food.
Thank you.
Consciousness, tissue, and mushrooms.
Thank you.
Compact green cities and communities.
Thank you.
Fighting against climate change is fun.
Fighting against climate change is fun.
Just a human standing in nature.
Just a human standing in nature.
I actually keep seeing the ice tunnel and some positive protection.
Thank you.
Being more humble with our lifestyle.
Thank you.
Refugees, loss, and a new standard of life.
New standard of life.
People in a conversation really listening to each other.
People in a conversation really listening to each other.
I will probably still be making exhibitions, but more and more conscious and with more and more people involving artists and scientists even more than I already do, because it can always be better.
Deeper, yep.
I see friends and family working together, helping each other out, caring for each other.
Thank you.
Different kinds of conversations with people I see on a daily basis.
Yeah, more interpreted. And yeah, okay.
I guess just small steps in the right direction and trying to convince other people to do the same.
Thank you. Let's go here.
I see people taking care of each other.
People taking care of each other. And I have someone here standing. Maybe 3 words from Cornelia.
Green, pink, and my hands in the mud.
Green, pink, and hands in the mud.
I would say personal consciousness.
Personal consciousness, thank you. Gideon, you thought of it very long.
Well, I hope for a more caring world with collaboration. Yeah.
Thank you. And last but not least, Christian.
I hope for a system change, rethinking all layers of society, I think. Yeah.
System change. You can open your eyes. Thank you for sharing that. Let me also share my dream. More people of different backgrounds in these audiences to have these conversations with. So I want to thank you for coming. I'm looking at the time. We have 7 minutes left, also go to the bar. I want to also give you the chance to ask some questions already here. Are there people who have really burning questions or topics that we didn't address yet? Oh, Gideon, what's your next movie? What are you working on?
Yeah, so I'm very much intrigued into the psychological side of climate change and what is happening within people, and also the cultural side about the culture of uncare, so that's one of my focus now, and the other thing is like really the opposite. It's like has to do with the instrument that I'm doing, and with the NGO that we are trying to build and trying to measure the atmosphere, which is all about going to strange places with those instruments and take measurements and try to understand what the data means and try to find the stories behind that data, because if it says 2% more CO2 or 0.5% less, it doesn't mean anything to anyone. So try to translate data into stories. So yeah. Yeah. Oh, if that would be the end goal, that would be fantastic. That would be my, that's my wet dream, that everybody would have that instrument and take measurements and that everybody is a scientist and knows what is going up above their heads everywhere around the world. Yeah.
How can we support that dream?
We are not there yet. No.
How can we support that dream?
Well, I will send the name of the NGO, and then you can get a newsletter of what's going on.
Ingrid was already mentioning a crowdfunder. She's like, we have to also pay for it. Yes, question.
Yeah, I was wondering what a role of government should be in all this, if there is any role.
I had a whole morning talking with people from the government about exactly this. I'm very curious what your answer would be.
And then everyone looks at me. Oh, is it for me?
Yes, Christian.
Because I said system change. Well, I would say the government should. What shall I say? I'm so disappointed in that. So I believe that they should provide more legal framework so that Well, maybe it's a bit upsetting, but enterprises, they will have the money to bring the change. So I just hope it will happen. Yeah. And by system change, I mean that it doesn't mean like we have to overthrow capitalism or something, but we do have to overthrow the greed. But I mean like we have to rethink on a systematic base everything. So, yeah.
When you talk about government, the question is, what is government nowadays? You know, who is in government? What kind of people? What is governing us? You know, because I wonder whether government can do quite a lot also. So that's also really kind of complex.
It is. It's very.
It's also very simple. I mean, the first thing that the government should do is take care, because that's why the government and the government should be honest, right? The politicians should be honest and
should be. Yeah.
Yeah. You also have a question, right?
I had, but I'm not sure how to ask. So so I was triggered by the fact that you were mentioning in the beginning that you want to be neutral in the things you're doing, right? And you mentioned as your dream that you want to have a systemic change. So more curious how you see that being neutral while making the system changing.
Well, I don't have a solution to offer, so I just hope that we can all contribute, and you as well as an audience. You're a fantastic audience. Let's try to really bring it out there, also to the government spheres. And to the voters as well. Yeah.
I want to propose and invite everybody to continue this story at the bar with a drink, but not before we give a very warm applause for Foundation We Are for hosting this. My apology for not always being so really clear and sharp on my questions. I'm very sorry, but please come Thursday, June 20, to the final meetup here. How do we embody climate change? Thank you for your patience, and see you next time.